Happy Friday, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for this edition of Arirang News. I'm Lee-Jiun in Seoul. 32 North Koreans arrived here in South Korea on Thursday to compete in the PyeongChang Winter Olympics. The two Koreas have been planning several conciliatory gestures during the Olympics, as the South has been hoping that the Games will serve as an opportunity to mend ties with North Korea after a period of tensions on the Korean Peninsula over North Korea's nuclear program. However, U.S. President Donald Trump, during his first State of the Union address, warned that Pyongyang's pursuit of nuclear missiles could very soon threaten the U.S. North Korea, meanwhile, warned that if Washington goes ahead with delayed joint military exercises with Seoul after the Olympics, it will not sit idle. And before I sit down with an expert to talk more about this, let's first get a check on what's making news at this hour with our Kim Ji-yeon at the News Center. Good afternoon, Ji-yeon.
Good afternoon, Jiun. North Korea is set to hold a military parade to mark its Army's Foundation Day on the eve of the opening day of the PyeongChang Winter Olympics. And South Korea's unification ministry said the parade should be viewed separately from the Games. Kim Myung-gil reports.
Despite its decision to send athletes to the Winter Olympics, North Korea announced it would celebrate the founding of its military on February 8th, one day before the start of PyeongChang 2018. The North Military Foundation Day is generally marked with a large parade displaying weapons such as missiles and artillery. On Friday, Seoul's unification ministry commented on the parade.
Our unification minister has said the North's military parade is a domestic event and is not targeted towards the PyeongChang Winter Olympics. It is reasonable to see the event as separate to the Winter Games.
The spokesperson also cited briefings by the U.S. Defense Department, which said Pyongyang frequently holds such military parades and that Washington was not bothered by it. He once again reiterated that the PyeongChang Winter Olympics will be an Olympics for peace.
All member countries within the United Nations should strive to make the PyeongChang Winter Olympics and Paralympics an event to foster peace within Korea and promote peace and cooperation throughout the world.
North Korea's athletes arrived in the South on Thursday, and the rest of the North delegation will enter South Korea next week. North Korea's art troupe will arrive on February 6th, while cheerleaders, members of the Taekwondo demonstration team, and journalists are scheduled to arrive on February 7th. Kim Myung-gil, Arirang News.
Despite tensions over North Korea's move to hold a military parade before the PyeongChang Olympics, Washington has downplayed its significance, and rather it regards the inter-Korean dialogue as a precursor to denuclearization talks. Lee Jung-yeon reports.
Just a day before the start of the PyeongChang Winter Olympics on Friday here in South Korea is North Korea's newly designated Foundation Day for the regime's Korean People's Army on February 8th. Pyongyang is to hold a range of celebratory events on the day, the main one being a large military parade. When asked about the possible impact of the parade just before the Winter Games, the Pentagon's chief spokesperson Dana White said on Thursday that North Korea often has parades and that the U.S. is very capable of countering any threat to the United States, its allies, or its partners. The spokesperson added that Washington sees the resumption of inter-Korean dialogue as a good sign and hopes it could lead to denuclearization talks between Washington and Pyongyang. According to Voice of America, satellite images of the regime show the preparations for the parade are well underway. Photos taken on Thursday are set to reveal red waves of people aligned to spell out the name of Kim Jong-un at Kim Il-sung Square. Other photos taken earlier in January show large movements at a square near the medium air base in Pyongyang, with hundreds of vehicles parked outside and troops in large formations. According to VOA, the scale of the parade seems to be similar to that of last year. North Korea often uses parades as a way to showcase its military might on special occasions, sometimes revealing newly developed weapons. The Foundation Day was previously celebrated on April 25th. Lee Jung-yeon, Arirang News.
Trade representatives from South Korea and the U.S. wrapped up their second round of talks on the possible amendment of their free trade agreement. Korea's trade ministry says Seoul raised issues with some of the clauses regarding investor-state dispute settlement and ways to protect its agricultural industry, while Washington presented proposals to boost its auto exports. It said the talks were heated, and Korea made a complaint about the unfairness of recent U.S. safeguard measures against imported washing machines and solar panels. The two sides are expected to hold a third meeting in the U.S. in the coming weeks. Korean tech giant Samsung Electronics ranked 4th in the world in terms of brand value, up 2 notches from last year in the latest Brand Finance Global 500 ranking. It estimates the brand to be valued at $92.3 billion US dollars. It said the surge in sales were driven by Samsung Galaxy products. It added Samsung's philosophy of do what you can't resonated with consumers. Number 1 on the list was Amazon with a brand value of almost $151 billion, followed by Apple and Google. Not to be confused with market capitalization or enterprise value, brand value is defined as a marketing-related intangible asset, and this is the value of the image of the brand itself in the minds of stakeholders. After years of waiting, the final of final countdowns is on. In exactly 1 week, the curtain will go up on the 2018 PyeongChang Winter Olympics. If you're cheering for Team Korea and are wondering which tickets to snap up, here's a run-through of the sporting disciplines where Korea stands a golden chance of grabbing some medals. Lee Ji-won has the details.
With the goal of winning at least 8 gold, 4 silver, and 8 bronze medals, Team Korea aims to win a record number of medals and finish among the top 4 during the PyeongChang Winter Olympics. And the medal hunt will start on the second day of the Games, when the men's 1500 meters event for short track speed skating takes place at Gangneung Ice Arena. Though the men's short track event did not bring home any medals for Team Korea at the previous Sochi Olympics, the discipline is still one of Korea's strongest hopes for gold. Most of the finals for short track speed skating will be held on February 22nd, including the women's 1,000-meter and men's 5,000-meter relay. The period around the Seollal or Lunar New Year holiday will be a key time for Team Korea. Starting with the women's 500-meter event, we'll witness the world's number 1 and number 2 skaters Choi Min-jung and Shim Seok-ki fighting for the gold, while rising figure skating star Cha Jun-won's singles is held on the 17th. Moreover, we'll witness 2-time champion of the women's 500-meter race in speed skating Lee Sang-hwa aiming for her 3rd gold medal on the last day of the holiday. While Team Korea has been strong on the ice, the team has never won any medals in snow or track events. But it seems a new chapter will be written in PyeongChang. Skeleton, where racers leap on a tiny sled and plummet down a steep ice track, is an unfamiliar event to many Koreans. But with Yoon Sung-bin rising to the world's top rankings in recent competitions, the possibility of clutching the first gold medal in this discipline has gone up. Alpine snowboarder Lee Sang-woo also came in first in many recent competitions held globally, garnering hope that Team Korea will secure another gold medal just a few days before the game's end. Hopes for gold will be further enhanced thanks to 19 foreign athletes who will be competing under the Korean flag, an unprecedented number in Korean Olympic history. Korea's men's ice hockey team has included 7 foreign athletes in its roster, raising the possibilities of winning a medal. And Korean-Norwegian Kim Magnus is also a gold medal hopeful in cross-country skiing. Lee Ji-won, Arirang News.
I'm Kim Ji-yeon. Those are your headlines for this hour.
A team of athletes from both Koreas came down south of the border on Thursday. South Korean athletes returned home after wrapping up their 2-day training at the Masikryong ski resort, while a dozen other North Korean athletes invited to take part in the PyeongChang Olympics crossed the border yesterday as well. And before we sit down with an expert to dig deeper into the issues surrounding North Korea as the Olympics draws near, our Song Ji-sun reports on North and South Korean athletes preparing for the Winter Games.
A delegation of 31 South Korean skiers was flown back home from North Korea Thursday on a chartered flight. They were joined by 32 North Koreans, led by the North Vice Sport Minister Won Gi-ru. Among them are 10 athletes who will compete in the 2018 PyeongChang Olympics, including a figure skating duo, 2 short track speed skaters, and 3 athletes each in cross-country and alpine skiing. Upon arriving in South Korea, the 10 North Korean athletes were taken to the athletes' village in Gangneung, where they will stay throughout the duration of the Winter Games. As for the 12 members of the North Korean women's ice hockey team, they had arrived in the South last week to hold joint training with their South Korean teammates. A total of 22 North Korean athletes will compete across 5 disciplines, making this the largest North Korean delegation in Winter Olympic history. On the last day of the 2-day training on Thursday, the South Korean alpine and cross-country skiers held joint training sessions including friendly races at the North Masikryong Ski Resort. There are 10 slopes at the resort with a total length of nearly 18 kilometers. The luxurious Masikryong Ski Resort opened in December 2013, which took less than a year to build after the North leader Kim Jong-un ordered the construction in February of the same year. Kim, who is known to have been educated in Switzerland, is rumored to be keenly interested in skiing. 송지선, Arirang News.
And to tell us more about issues surrounding the North's participation in the PyeongChang Winter Olympics, Dr. Lee Sung-hyun, a research fellow and North Korea expert at the Sejong Institute, joins us in the studio today. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so yesterday, North Korean athletes led by North Korea's Vice Sports Minister Won Gi-ru arrived here in South Korea to take part in the PyeongChang Winter Olympics. Now, tell us more about him and what significance his visit here in South Korea holds.
Yeah, North Korea is a little bit secretive, and we don't know much about individuals working behind the scenes. Won Gi-ru used to be a weightlifter himself, a sports athlete, and he became the vice minister in charge of sports in 2012.
Okay.
And last month, during the high-level inter-Korean talks, he also participated there. And his landing in South Korea as the head of the North Korean delegation officially means that it's the presence of North Korean athletes participating in the PyeongChang Winter Olympic Games officially.
All right, and we also know that on Thursday, the North Korean flag was raised at the athletes' village in PyeongChang, as well as stadiums in Gangneung and PyeongChang, so where North Korean athletes will be competing during the Winter Olympics. Now, what significance does this hold?
Well, it was there was some interesting 2 episodes. North Korea is, in a sense, an exceptional country, euphemistic sense. Normally, the national flags, when the athletes of countries enter the Olympic Village, their national flags were displayed one day before the opening of the Olympic Village. But for North Korea, because of South Korean national security law, it was national flags were displayed on the same day when the Olympic Village was opened. Also, national flags, normally display of national flags was done by military personnel, usually the honor guards. But because of the tension on the Korean Peninsula and the adversarial relationship, also the technical inter-Korean war still going on, it was a civilian who went to the North Korean barracks and displayed the national flag. So it was something some interesting or some episode that special treatment that North Korea got this time.
Now, when are we expecting the North Korean art troupe as well as the Taekwondo demonstration team? Any changes on that front?
Well, despite some setbacks, such as the cancellation of Mount Kumgang, the cultural gala to be held in North Korea, I think things are also moving along. There are some little glitches and changes, such as the North Korea's demonstration of Taekwondo martial arts performance will be held before, not during the opening ceremony. Also, the team of art troupe will arrive not as one single group, but as 2 separate groups. But other than that, things are also, despite some setbacks, things are also moving along.
All right. Well, with the PyeongChang Olympics now only days away, the schedule has been set for North Korea's participation in the Olympics, but we still have that military parade coming up in North Korea in celebration of the 70th anniversary of its foundation of its military over in North Korea. So what can we expect on that front?
Honestly speaking, we cannot completely exclude some possibility of some uncertainty when it comes to North Korea. There is some history of last-minute cancellations or some unexplained reversals and not showing up on the events where they're supposed to. But this time, I think things will be okay because if North Korea does something provocative or some cancel some sports games, that won't be just the inter-Korean issue. This will be an international issue. And North Korea also attaches a face to the international image when they show up to the international audience. So I think North Korea also cares about this image issue as well. That's why a lot of art troupe and the performance team for North Korea's way of a public diplomacy team will come here. So North Korea, once they arrive here, they'll do their best to show their better side of their regime. That's my expectation.
So do you agree with the South Korean unification minister who actually said that North Korea's military parade coming up on February 8th is kind of unrelated? It's just the timing of it is just coincidental. You agree with that?
Well, North Korea used to be holding this National Military Foundation ceremony during the April, following the tradition of North Korea founder Kim Il-sung. But actually the original date, when you study history, it's actually in February. So Kim Jong-un has the spirit mentality of we have to go back to our original tradition. So that's why he is the first leader of North Korea to change the schedule back to the original date, which happens to be February 8th.
Okay.
Unfortunately, this is one day before the opening of the Olympic Games. So that's something unfortunate side. But we don't have to overreact. At the same time, we don't have to underestimate its significance.
All right. Well, in his first State of the Union address, U.S. President Donald Trump warned that North Korea, quote unquote, very soon threaten the U.S. homeland with nuclear-tipped missiles. And North Korea, in response, said that if the U.S. goes ahead with military exercises with South Korea after the Olympics, it won't sit idle. So what can we make of these statements, both from Trump and North Korea?
Well, I read the North Korean commentary. The title of the commentary is Misjudgment Will Lead to Ultimate Destruction. That is North Korea's way of warning America. I think North Korea is trying to portray it is the U.S. who is problematic, who is the U.S. who is trying to raise attention, not North Korea. North Korea is a peace lover. This propaganda, which will not work because people are savvy about this, North Korea's tactics. But at the same time, it also, I think, shows that North Korea is also concerned about possible U.S. military strike against North Korea. So it's a double take. When North Korea wants something, that means that North Korea is also concerned about something as well.
Those are some fiery comments from Trump, don't you think?
Yes, particularly when Trump says during the State of the Union address. Normally, the words that comes to Trump's strategy to North Korea is maximum pressure and engagement. But when you watch the State of the Union address, he just stopped saying maximum pressure. He didn't mention the engagement.
Right.
So people are wondering, oh, where is the engagement? It suddenly disappeared. So this is, maybe that's a coincidence, maybe that is intended, but this is something that we pay attention to, such as analysts like me.
And there's also concerns that North Korea is indeed driving a wedge between Seoul and Washington because, in fact, the White House's original choice for U.S. Ambassador to South Korea, Victor Cha, is now no longer expected to be nominated for the position. So tell us more about this.
I think the reason Victor Cha was sidelined was, according to American media outlets' reports, is because he opposed limited military strike against North Korea. Second, he also opposed the civilian evacuation of Americans living in South Korea. We call non-combatant evacuation operation NEO. The NEO means it's a prelude to the start of the war. So Victor Cha opposed these military options. As I said, we don't have to overreact, but we also have to see things as they are. At least it confirms how seriously the military option is considered in the Washington policy-making circles. And in a sense that South Koreans also, we have been habituated for the last 60 or 70 years that this inter-Korean tension, and we think we are a little bit complacent. We take North Korean tension as business as usual,
Right.
and we don't. Sometimes we probably don't react or prepare as much as we should do. Particularly at this PyeongChang Winter Olympic Games, as in the South Korea accepts North Korea's olive branch and getting close toward North Korea, Washington is worried, wary about North Korea, as you mentioned, trying to drive a wedge between Washington and Seoul. Also, Washington is concerned that probably North Korea's tactic is to reduce the internet sanctions against
Right.
North Korea. So South Korea should tune to Washington's concerns, and there should be a robust communication between Washington and Seoul. Also, I think my request for Washington is that Washington sometimes doesn't really appreciate the complexity of international, the inter-Korean relations. North Korea is our enemy to destroy. At the same time, our estranged brother
Right.
to reunify. This is very complex emotional relations, and sometimes Washington doesn't necessarily appreciate this complex nature. At the same time, Seoul also needs to robustly explain what's going on in Seoul and Pyongyang. I think this kind of confidence building, communication, robust channel of communication is very, very necessary and due at this particular time.
So with Victor Cha out of the position now, I guess, or the nomination, I mean, should we be worried about a preventive military strike from the U.S. then?
I think, let me be very frank, I'm more worried today than at any other time since the Korean War. What that means is that, as far as I know, and also in some of the 1.5 track 1.5 consultations I participated, including a former U.S. Defense Secretary, I think the U.S. is putting, as they said, putting all the options on the table, not excluding military options. Military options are also on the table. That is a U.S. resolve. And I think Pyongyang should be really realistic and see things as they are, reality on the ground. And also Seoul should really has the innocence that while we are celebrating this PyeongChang Winter Olympics, we also have to think about the day after PyeongChang Olympics. I think that's the key, how we could help pave the way for not just inter-Korean dialogue, but also Pyongyang-Washington dialogue. This is very important, I think.
And meanwhile, Russia's ambassador to North Korea has also warned that a United Nations attempt to cut oil supplies to North Korea could spark a global conflict.
That's quite a sensational remark, isn't it? This is very interesting. There are a couple of aspects to when it comes to Russia. Russia senses that there are lots of narratives and stories about North Korea going on these days. But Russia, for some reason, seems to be being sidelined, despite the fact that Russia is a UNSC, UN Security Council member, also a member of the six-party talks. So Russia, by tossing out this statement, Russia wants to be noticed. I'm here, don't ignore me. Hey guys, I'm also part of this important game. So that's one game. I think it's fair and also important that we have to recognize Russia's presence. At the same time, I think that is not really correct, because when Russia made that remark, it was a petroleum processed product.
Okay.
But the key is raw crude oil supply to North Korea, which is about 500,000 a year. It is still intact. So North Korea is at that dire state. And also, I think it was done not part of the UN sanctions list because of the China's work. China opposed the including raw crude oil. So there are lots of interesting behind-the-scenes game that happening in this sanctions regiment here.
So definitely a lot of uncertainties
A lot of
surrounding
uncertainties,
North
yes.
Korea as the PyeongChang Winter Olympics draws near.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for your insight today.
Thank you for having me.
And that wraps it up for today and this week, but we'll be back next week with more of the day's top stories and an in-depth look at ongoing issues here in Korea and around the world. So don't forget to tune in then. Thanks for watching and see you soon.